Challenge.
I'll call the meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Chairman Galvin?
Here.
Vice Chair Cowan?
Here.
Board Member Arnone?
Here.
Board Member Dowd? Here. Board Member Holt?
Here.
Board Member Stephenson?
Here.
Board Member Tibbetts?
Here.
Statements of abstention by board members. I believe Vice Chair Cowan was not present for the February 5th minutes.
Well, if that's what the record says, then let it stand. Thank you.
All right, we have no study sessions. We do have minutes for January 15th and February 5th.
I'll move approval.
Second. Motion by Board Member Arnone, seconded by Board Member Dowd to approve the minutes for January 15th and February 5th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed and abstentions. Board Member Tibbetts on both and Vice Chair Cowan for the February 5th minutes. We have one consent item, item 6.1.
I'll move the consent calendar.
We have a staff briefing first.
Okay.
5.1, is it?
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I skipped 5.1. Pardon me, we have the Energy and Sustainability Team overview. My apologies.
No problem, great. Thanks. And to present this, we have Nicole Doratinsky and Colin Close, and our Energy and Sustainability Team is here as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I'm Nicole Doratinsky, and this is Colin Close. We are both research and program coordinators for the Energy and Sustainability Team. The Energy and Sustainability was formed under the Water and Engineering Resources Division last year in response to City Council's greenhouse gas reduction goals and the increase of energy costs. Our team is small but mighty. We have 4 full-time employees and 2 interns. Our mission is to ensure Santa Rosa Water achieves its objectives related to energy independence, resource management, climate action, water energy optimization, and water education. At this time, I'll pass it over to Colin, and he'll discuss our first 4 goals.
Thank you, Nicole. So in terms of energy independence, we want to just give you a little bit of an understanding what each of these goals are. So energy independence on a national level, of course, means producing more energy or as much energy as you consume. On the local level, we're really talking about having less of a reliance, less of a need to purchase energy from local providers. So we do that with energy efficiency and by producing more energy of our own. So that's kind of the overarching goal. More specifically, our goal is to increase energy independence with 5 specific strategies. So we're undergoing energy optimization planning for the subregional system right now. In 2 weeks, we'll be coming back to you with an update on that project, so you'll know more about the status of that. Our staff is busy formulating an energy policy at this point. We're always looking to expand renewable energy when possible. We're also looking at managing our energy accounts, so really understanding which accounts are serving which locations and are we at the right rate, that sort of thing. And as you know, we recently analyzed the power provider options and recommended moving forward with Sonoma Clean Power, and we're continuing to look at what the power providers have as options, so that's another one of our strategies. When we talk about resource management, we're really focused on the recovery of resources, reusing, repurposing. As you know, the Laguna Treatment Plant has mastered this, right? So wastewater comes in and there's beneficial reuse, there's energy, there are biosolids that are composted, and then there's recycled water. So the plant has done a fantastic job. So what we're looking at then is not so much the plant, but other ways that we could be reducing, reusing, repurposing. So we're looking at the admin side and other areas of operations. So we'll be studying ways that we can enhance these efforts and also working with our staff to make sure everybody's really up to par on the environmentally preferable purchasing policy. Has some great guidance in it, and so we want our staff to better understand this citywide policy and how it applies to our department. Our third goal is related to climate action. In 2012, the city adopted a community-wide climate action plan, and in 2013, you'll recall, the city adopted a municipal climate action plan, and our staff was intricately involved in the development of both of those documents. So there are some strategies in there that apply to our department that we can use, and more specifically, when we're talking about this goal, we're talking about helping our department reduce our greenhouse gases. Our department is probably responsible for about half of the greenhouse gases produced by the city. So we'll be looking at implementing the Municipal Climate Action Plan, tracking and reporting greenhouse gases, and also looking at some studies that have recently done some modeling on what the scenarios might be for Sonoma County with climate change, and then developing adaptation strategies so our department can be really resilient and cost-effective in its response to climate change. Water energy optimization is looking at this very close relationship between water and energy. As you are probably aware, some power providers use a lot of water when they're producing energy. We use a lot of energy to produce, deliver, collect, treat, and reuse water. So there's a way that we can leverage this relationship. So more specifically, what we're looking at is providing leadership for this water energy nexus for our department. And we're currently analyzing the energy intensity of our water, and at some point we'll be coming back to you to give you more of an understanding about how our water and energy are closely aligned in our own department. And we'll be developing a 5-year water energy strategic plan as well. At this point, what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Nicole to wrap it up with our 5th goal.
So last but not least is water education. Since I've been working here at the city, I've been able to work on a lot of different projects, and this happens to be one of my favorites, because I get to go out and talk to our community members one-on-one about water quality, where water comes from, and the value of service we provide. So all of us here know that when it's not a miracle that when we turn on our tap, water flows. It takes a huge infrastructure and a lot of employees to provide water 24/7 to our customers. But unfortunately, not everyone knows this, which is why it's really invaluable that we're out there in the community engaging our members about water. So how do we do this? We do this in a couple ways. The first way is through our Take It From the Tap youth education program. Our interns sitting back here, they go to Santa Rosa City Schools and youth groups and talk to the kids about where our water comes from, water quality, the environmental, health, and economic benefits of drinking tap water as opposed to bottled water, and with the drought situation, they give them tips on how to save water at school and at home. Since mid-2013, we've reached almost 5,000 students, and this month alone, all of Roseland School District will be receiving water education in their very own Take It From the Tap bottle. So that's a great program, the kids love it. The second thing that we do is we are constantly present at community events. We facilitate hydration stations, which not only allows us to provide water to our customers while they're enjoying Santa Rosa, but it also gives us that ability to talk to them about our water system. In addition to attending events, we also host an annual Earth Day Festival. This year, the 6th annual Earth Day Festival will be held on April 18th from 12 to 4 in Courthouse Square. And this is a multi-department and county-wide effort to inspire awareness in our community. So I hope all of you can come down there. David was there last year face painting, so if anyone wants to join him, I'm sure he would love it. So I also want to thank you guys for choosing to take it from the tap here at your board meetings. Your support and leadership means a lot to us. And at this time, we'll take questions if you have any.
Board member questions? Board member Dowd.
I have to admit that there are times when I'm aghast when I am forced to go through Costco shopping, and I see people with the big push carts coming out of the store or through the store. One time recently, I saw a father and his two children. The children were probably 6 and 10, something in that range, and I counted the number of bottles of water they had on the cart, and it was near 400.
Wow.
They were of Latino heritage, and it is my understanding professionally, supported by others I suspect here at the dais, that in some of the Latin American countries, the water is not safe. And culturally, they've been educated to not take water from the tap. It's a huge expense to those families, but it's one that I think they're having a very, very difficult time overcoming. And so my question really after that little preamble is, are we really reaching out to that Latino community, and if so, how?
Yeah, we have cross-trained a woman that speaks Spanish in a different division, or she's in the same division, but she's in water resources. And she goes out to like Cesar Chavez, she goes out to land paths. She's very active in Roseland area, and so she is conveying our message in Spanish. We also had an intern last year who was out with our interns and translating. So we are working in that direction, but we do have a language barrier, so we have to cross-train people, but we see that as a big concern.
Board Member Holt.
Yes, thank you. A nice presentation. I like your graphics. When did you start on this plan? How far along are you?
And are you talking about energy optimization planning or
Well, your
our strategic plan?
Yeah, just kind of give me a brief update of that.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, we developed a strategic plan for our team in August of 2014.
Right.
And that has all of these goals, and it has a 5-year plan for achieving some of these goals. And then more specifically, in terms of the energy optimization planning, that started last year, and the sub-regional system plan will probably be wrapped up sometime this year, and then there'll be implementation. And then we'll be looking at energy optimization plans for the local operations as well, and that'll sort of roll out over the next year. In terms of resource management, that's an area where we're still doing some initial research to really understand how we can most cost-effectively address resource recovery, reduce, reuse, recycle in ways that we aren't already doing. So that one's still in its infancy. And the climate action plans have been in place for a couple of years, and so those are being implemented bit by bit, and we're in a collaborative effort with the Community Development Department because they are looking at greenhouse gases for the community as a whole and also for the city as a whole, and we're playing a part in helping them work on developing reports and that sort of thing around greenhouse gases, and then also in a consortium with the county to look at how we can use software that's available at no cost to municipalities to track their greenhouse gases and work in a way so that we're all using the same language, the same software, the same approach to reporting so that no matter what city you're talking about in the county, everybody is sort of saying the same thing. And then water energy optimization, again, we're at the very early stages of beginning to develop our understanding of how to analyze this water energy nexus, how much energy it takes to move water, to collect it, to treat it, this sort of thing. And so we're just right now we're collecting data, we're starting to look at how to crunch that data, looking to the state for some guidance about what are the most effective ways to use the data we have, and so that's at the very early stages right now for that piece.
Right, so are there any other utilities nearby other than the water agency or California or nationwide that have already moved along with some plan that you can kind of piggyback on or use as a guideline? Other ideas?
That is such a great question. We did a lot of research because when we were looking at what would make sense as an energy policy, this issue came up, and so we actually struggled to find very many local municipalities or even counties or even regional agencies that have clearly articulated energy policies or clearly articulated energy management plans. So there were a few, but most of the ones that we found were in very large municipalities like New York City or Portland or places like that. So we'll have good models that we can use, but in some ways we're a bit at the forefront of this. As you know, our department is incredibly energy efficient. And so we really feel like our next step is going beyond just energy efficiency towards this idea of energy independence and towards this idea of really managing our energy holistically. So, so we may be a little bit ahead of some of our peers in this way.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that you don't mind being in the forefront. So is this going to end up as a series of documents, a series of plans, or you said a 5-year window, so I hope things will be coming along as you develop them piecemeal.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned, in 2 weeks, you'll be hearing more about the energy optimization plan. And then, so you'll know what work has been done to date and what we think the next steps are. Yeah, so I think that there'll be a series of, as we develop reports or as we develop strategies or we develop, plans, we'll certainly be reporting back. We're actually very excited about the opportunity of coming back to you to talk about what we're accomplishing and what the goals are and when we hit benchmarks. So we'd be delighted to come back.
It'd be great to keep moving along.
Yeah.
One last question. I recall that when the Stony Point site was opened, there was plans for solar panels over the parking lot and on the buildings. Is that ever going to come?
It hasn't come to fruition yet, but it is still a project that we're very interested in. And the price of solar has come down dramatically over the last 5 years, so it may be a very realistic option in the future.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board Member Collins.
Board Member Tibbetts?
Hi, thanks so much for your presentation.
covers most of
I'm
it.
a new board member here, so when you present, I'm very excited. I learned a lot. Thank you. So you can see I'm new. But I just got back from an affordable housing development workshop for builders. And as I was sitting there, I kind of thought as a member of the BPU, what impact is this going to have on our water supply as we start to introduce thousands of new units on the housing market? And is your department doing anything to work with developers or the respective players to mitigate a lot of water usage and promote more conservation practices? Thanks.
It's a great question. It goes just beyond the area that we're working on, but it's within our division. So we're going to ask Deputy Director Jennifer Burke to address that.
Hi, good afternoon. It is a great question, and we do a lot of planning, and you'll be hearing quite a bit more about that as the year goes on. But what we do is we look at the general plan and what's required in the general plan, and then we take those population projections, those employment projections, and then we determine what the water demand would be based on historical use, based on plumbing code, based on efficiencies that'll be required for new development going forward. So there are things like the Cal Green building requirements that require any new development to be 20% more efficient than current. There's also our water efficient landscape ordinance, or WELO. We use a lot of acronyms, so you'll hear that too. But that requires new development landscaping to be extremely efficient, and we have actually adopted a WELO that is more efficient and restrictive than the state's model ordinance. So those are the kind of things that are incorporated into the demand projection. And then our job is to determine where the supply is going to come from to meet those demand projections. And we look at, our water agency supply, we look at potential groundwater, we look at recycled water, but we also factor into water conservation. So in our last urban water management plan, for example, we identified another, I believe it's 2,400 acre feet per year of water conservation savings that we're aiming to do above and beyond our current savings. We'll be updating that information. The urban water management plan is required to be updated every 5 years, typically ending in years 5 and 0. So this is one of those years. We actually, the legislature extended the date, so it'll be due June 30th of 2016.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Board Member Arnone?
I think you've answered most of my questions already, and talking about the different goals that you have, and they're very lofty goals, all 5 of them. And I guess the only thing I would add, request, is that try to add some metrics to your benchmarks. The goals are great, but trying to measure the achievement and progress towards those goals looks like it might be difficult. And so, I mean, I'd like to see some objective criteria, particularly for things like climate action and energy independence. I think you have water energy optimization. It looks like you have a 5-year plan you're working on there. Your education outreach looks like you have specific events you're working on there. The other 3 seem like they're amenable to having some number-driven benchmarks that you can identify. So.
Yeah, we absolutely agree. I'm a huge data fan. I'm a metrics-driven kind of person, so that's one of the things that I actually am very motivated around, are those sorts of things. So our strategic plan has a little bit of that, but partly what we think is going to be important is making sure that we have an energy policy in place, and that will set the sort of grand goals, not necessarily how we achieve them, but the big goals, the 2020, 2050 type goals. And then we will be able to develop strategies to achieve those with benchmarks, and really specific benchmarks. So our strategic plan provides some of those, but we didn't want to get the cart too far ahead of the horse. And so we think that some really smart work on policy will lay the groundwork for the kind of metrics that you're talking about. And we're very excited about that.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Cowan?
Thank you for the presentation. Just 2 unrelated questions. First, will your water energy optimization plan look at capturing energy from the water moving throughout the system?
That is something that was discussed very briefly. The difficulty is that we're not in a system where there is an opportunity to do much of that. Most of what we're trying to do is maintain pressure, and that reduces pressure at points. Whereas there are some places like Portland where water's moving downhill, and there are great opportunities to have really large turbines in their water pipes and capture a lot of energy. We're not in that situation. So it's been looked at over the years by staff, and every once in a while a new product will come out, or a new consultant will come out and want to talk about that. But it's, at this point, it doesn't look like there are places where we could really take advantage of harnessing that kind of energy without then having to use more energy to then increase pressure. So at this point, it doesn't pencil out, but we're always interested in ideas like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm familiar with what they're doing in Portland and curious about whether we could do it here. My other question is about the water education part of what you do. I had no idea that was part of your group's function, so thank you for educating me. And the idea of hydration stations, I think, is a great one. I feel like some people think that there's an ick factor with just, like going in the bathroom and filling up their water bottle. It's kind of weird that that's the case, but the hydration stations seem to be really popular. I know I've seen them in airports and whatnot. Wondering if we've ever discussed putting a permanent one in the city, somewhere that's prominent.
So right now what we're trying to do is create a water wagon. We just purchased a truck, so we're putting taps on both sides. So we'll have 10 taps on either side, and then we're going to brand it with Santa Rosa Water and have our water system on it, and have, we're just in the developing phase right now, but it's going to be like each vehicle. So we'll have our brochures and everything, and then we'll have an awning, and so it's going to be an all-inclusive education, mobile, and water dispenser. So that's what we hope to do.
It's like a food truck for water. Very, very hip. Nice.
Your trip.
Yeah, right.
Great.
So that's in the works.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in the next couple of months, we should have more of an idea what it's going to look like and when we're going to roll it out, but that's the plan.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, keep in mind, putting one in City Hall or, I don't know, somewhere downtown. I think that would be really cool.
I don't know if you guys know about the City Hall garden that they're putting in. We're trying to get a hydration station in there
Very
as well,
nice.
so we're trying.
I think that would really do a lot for PR, and I think people would use it. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Dowd?
I'd like to go back to the slide 4 of 6. That's the pie chart.
Okay, so that
There you are.
Okay, hold on to your horses. There we go. You can get dizzy with this thing.
The question I have, and is that you separate out water and wastewater ops at 50%, but then if I look at the other half of the pie chart, there are fleet and there's employees and there's buildings and facilities. I presume that the utility department's fleet is in the blue side of the equation. It doesn't necessarily indicate that, but I suspect that's what it is.
Yeah, that's accurate. In fact, the buildings, the fleet, anything that isn't directly water and operations would be GHG inventory, looking at community-wide and then looking at the city on its own, and so it's not as clear a picture. It's one of the reasons why we're very interested in working with the county consortium and with community development on using some new greenhouse gas inventory and monitoring and reporting tools. We won't be required to use consultants anymore. We'll have in-house expertise, be able to generate with as much fine-tuning as we like these kinds of charts that more accurately depict any individual activity or department or section. So that's one of the reasons we're really interested in being able to parse that data ourselves. So this data was produced by a consultant, and it gives a picture, but you're right, we're more than 50% if we count our fleet and our buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other board member report or questions? Nicole, Colin, thank you very much to you and your team for the presentation. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Okay, item 6.1 now is the consent calendar, the Silva Avenue and King Street Sewer and Water Replacement Project.
I would move approval of the consent calendar, Chairman.
Motion by Board Member Dowd, seconded by Vice Chair Cowan to approve the consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7.1, water supply update. Deputy Director Burke.
Good afternoon again. That came a little faster than I was thinking. Gina, where is this? I don't see it. Oh. Okay. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, Chairman Galvin and members of the board. I'm here to give the water supply update for today. So currently, Lake Mendocino is at 67,444 acre feet. You may recall from the last water supply update, I had mentioned that the water supply pool starts to grow starting in March. So you'll see that dotted line is increasing, and it'll continuously increase until a little after May, sometime mid-May. So right now, you're going to see every time I come, the percentages are going to look significantly different because that water supply pool is growing. So currently, the water supply pool is 70,800 acre feet. So that means the percentage of water supply capacity is 95.2%. So it changed from just a couple of days ago because it's growing every day by 600 acre feet. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. The 24-hour average release is 122 cubic feet per second. I did also want to let the board know that the temporary urgency change order that we were operating under, that the water agency had requested, expired on February 20th. So we're no longer under those reduced minimum in-stream flow conditions. So now Decision 1610, which is the water agency's water rights permits, is back in effect, and we are currently in normal conditions. So the current requirement, the minimum in-stream flow in the upper Russian River right now is 150 cubic feet per second. We will see the water agency take action most likely if we stay in normal conditions, which we may or may not. It just depends if we receive any more rainfall. If it continues to be dry, we may actually drop down to dry conditions. That requirement changes continuously through May, but if we stay in normal conditions, the water agency will need to file another temporary urgency change petition related to the biological opinion. And just for a little bit of history, and I know we have a new board member, the biological opinion requires lower minimum in-stream flows than Decision 1610. And the biological opinion was something that was developed in response to the 3 listed fish species that live in the Russian River and Dry Creek. And the National Marine Fisheries Service found that the flow was too fast for the small fish when they're first, and I'm sorry, I'm not a fisheries person, so I don't know exactly the stages, what they're called, but when they're very young, it's too fast, and so they required the water agency to file a temporary urgency change petition every year with the state board to get a variance from their minimum in-stream flow requirements to make them lower. So just wanted to let the board know that right now we're in normal conditions, so the in-stream flows are a little higher, and most likely we'll see the water agency file another temporary urgency change petition in either April or May of this year. In terms of Lake Pillsbury, currently Lake Pillsbury is at 53,641 acre feet, and that's 71.5% of water supply capacity. And the 24-hour average release is 204 cubic feet per second, and Potter Valley project is back online. And so they are diverting through the tunnels, and the diversion as of today was 46 cubic feet per second. In terms of Lake Sonoma, currently, Lake Sonoma is at 218,184 acre feet, and that's 89% of water supply capacity. The 24-hour average release is 78 cubic feet per second. Again, we're in normal conditions, so the flow requirements are a little bit higher. At Hacienda in the lower Russian River, it's 125 cubic feet per second, but there's still a lot of water in the system right now, so the 24-hour average flow at Hacienda is actually 755 cubic feet per second. So that's where we are with our water supply storage. I also wanted to remind the board that we're continuing to follow the actions at the state level. We anticipate there will be a call today with State Water Board members from 3 to 4 today, and they're going to outline the draft proposal for the emergency regulations. Based on the information I'm hearing, we anticipate that they're going to release that draft tomorrow. They may release it today, it's hard to say, but most likely it'll be tomorrow. So staff will be looking at that closely just to see what it's going to mean, how it's going to affect us. Again, we do anticipate that they'll be extending the drought regulations for 270 days, that they may make some clarifications. At this point, we don't believe it will change the stage we are in our urban water shortage contingency plan, but again, we won't know for sure until we see those draft regs. So we'll be following that closely. We'll make sure the board is kept up to date on that. And everything we're hearing is that the State Water Board is actually going to consider this at their March 17th board meeting. Wanted to give an update on our emergency groundwater program. So as I've mentioned before with the board, we've been in some discussions with some public agencies about trying to acquire some property, and I'm finally at a position where I can tell you who we've been working with. So we are looking, as you may recall, to site our first emergency well in the vicinity of the Martha Way test boring. And after we identified potential site locations, one of them that was really promising was at the Montgomery High School. So we've been in discussions with Santa Rosa City Schools for a number of months now, and we are going to be going to the school board meeting next week on March 11th to give an initial background information and let them know of our interest, and then we will be starting the property acquisition process We anticipate that we will be going back to their board in April on their first meeting on April 8th, and that they will most likely have a public hearing to consider the property acquisition on April 22nd, which is their second meeting in April. Also, again, I know I talked about this last time, but I wanted to just remind the board about the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And again, this was the big legislation that was signed by the governor last year, giving a number of powers related to sustainable groundwater management to local groundwater sustainability agencies, which are required to be formed by June 30th of 2017. And as part of that, those agencies are then supposed to adopt a groundwater sustainability plan by January of 2022. And again, we are very much in the forefront with this because we were working on our groundwater management plan for the Santa Rosa Plains subbasin. So that will be leveraged to help with the plan and also assist with, to some extent, the formation of the groundwater sustainability agencies. Again, I wanted to remind the board that we have been working closely with the water agency staff, and we're continuing to talk to them about how this may get developed. And at their board of directors meeting on March 17th, the water agency is going to take an item in front of their board asking for funding for a stakeholder assessment. So all the discussions that we've been having really lent to encouraging the water agency to put out a request to get a facilitator on board to do a stakeholder assessment to determine what would be the best way to form a groundwater sustainability agency. So we will have plenty of options to have input, and we'll also be making sure that we get input from the board and council on how this develops. Turning over quickly to conservation, I don't quite have enough, didn't have enough time to get water conservation savings yet, so I will have those for February at next board meeting. Typically, our data comes in right around March, or the 6th or 7th of the month, so this board meeting was a little early. So I'll bring those next board meeting, but in the meantime, I wanted to also just highlight again our Fix a Leak Week, which is a national campaign that occurs March 16th through the 22nd of every year. And we are unveiling a new drip detective this year. It's very exciting. It's really designed to encourage our customers to investigate leaks and not be intimidated by finding them and fixing them, kind of telling them how easy it is to find and fix leaks. We have a bill insert that went out, I believe, last month. We have radio ads that have started and will continue the week of the Fix a Leak Week. We also have information on our website as well as social media. We will be kicking off the Fix a Leak Week at the St. Patrick's Day 5K, which again is Sunday, March 15th. And we will be having a running toilet. Leaks can run, but they can't hide, and so we'll be promoting fixing leaks by trying to catch our running toilet, which will be a particular person in a toilet costume, and they will be given tips on how they can reduce and find and fix water leaks. And then we'll be finishing up Fix a Leak Week with the home show, the Sonoma County Home Show, March 20th through 22nd. We'll have a booth there, and we'll have information, and again, information on how they can find and fix leaks, the drip detective kits. And then we're also coordinating with the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership on a press release, and we'll have some ads in the Press Democrat. So it'll be a fun week. So I encourage you to come out to any and all the events if you're interested. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Director Prinz, and he's going to give you an update on recycled water.
I had a few questions before you do that.
Oh, sure.
While you're standing here. Okay, the state plan, as I understand it, is one size fits all?
For the emergency drought regulations?
Yes. Yeah, so has there been any indication that they might look at it with the variations in the regions on water supply, water sources, or?
We don't anticipate there'll be much change in the regulations, so what we're hearing right now, and again, I don't know for sure until we see them, but what we're hearing from State Board staff is that it will be very similar to the current emergency regulations that are out, that they're going to extend them for 270 days, that there may be some clarification, there may be some additional requirements, slight requirements like using recycled water if it's available at hotels and motels for landscaping, requiring restaurants to serve water on request, which is not currently a requirement from their regulations, but like from our shortage plan it is. So certain things, certain additional things they might require, and that they'll also continue to require the reporting requirements that they've asked for, and they might have some additional requirements as well.
Right, so we survived under the previous one, so we can under the new one, hopefully.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah, also on, you mentioned the county is establishing their agency. Will that have regulatory powers?
For the Groundwater Sustainability Agency? So there are some powers given by the legislation to the groundwater sustainability agencies, including the power to actually collect data, and they actually can collect fees in some fashion as well. So there are some authorities that have been given to these agencies as part of the legislation. As we're going to be working together with the water agency and others within the basin, I'm sure there'll be discussion about how we form and what requirements we'll want in place for that groundwater sustainability agency.
Right. The Sonoma Valley and the Santa Rosa Plain plans and the Alexander Valley, those were all collaborative plans. With the idea that they were not regulatory. Any idea how those things could be melded together?
So the hope, what we are believing is that a lot of the information that has been gathered and the data that has been gathered to create the groundwater management plan can be used and leveraged for the groundwater sustainability plan. A lot of the actions and measures that are recommended to be implemented can also most likely be used for the plan. So we believe a lot of that information can be used. You know, one of the big things that this legislation will be helpful for is we've always recognized that having data from some of the rural water users as well as some of the agricultural interests is not something that's been very easy to get. So hopefully this, you know, as this legislation is implemented, it will make it easier to get some more data and have a better understanding of the amount of groundwater that's actually used in the basin. So there are some good things that are coming out of this legislation.
Any idea whether there might be various levels of plans, a county plan overseeing the collaborative plans or anything like that? End up with multiple groups?
You know, we don't know yet. It's really going to be...
It's going to be an interesting time.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm moving along here. You mentioned the operating toilet. And is that a tank-type toilet where you can determine leaks? Or my basic question is, with the new 0.8 and the previous 1.6 gallons per flush, those were all hard pipe systems. So if there is a leak in the plumbing of that, how do you detect that leak?
So, well, there's a couple different things folks can do, but for the most part, there's a lot of the high-efficiency toilets still allow you to use dye tabs that will work to show if you have a leak from the toilet tank to the bowl. For those where you can't do it, you know, we have information on how you can read your meter to look for leak indicators. There's a dial on your meter that will detect very low flows and indicate if you have a leak. So we have information on how folks can really do that and go through their house and identify where they might have leaks.
Yeah, so that would be a little bit more labor intensive. Okay, great.
Could be.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Chairman Galvin.
Board Member Dowd?
Ms. Burke, back to the Montgomery High School potential for a well, could you, and it may be premature where you can't talk about it at this point because you're in negotiations, but are we going to have to go through the school district declaring this excess property and disposing of it, and some of the things that Memorial Greenway had to go to, Prince Memorial Greenway?
I think what's currently under discussion, and you're right, it's probably a little premature, but is acquisition of an easement as opposed to fee title, and that would change the process.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if I could say that, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Deputy Director.
Okay, now here's
I
Deputy
guess
Director
if
Prince.
the running toilet is somebody who we think it is, maybe he ought to do some face painting.
One and the same.
Good afternoon, Chairman Galvin and members of the board. It's always a little bit hard to follow Jennifer because she seems to have so much more information than I usually do, and I just show you the same plot, same chart, time after time, but I do have a few things to say about our current recycled water storage currently. One thing I want to point out about this chart, you all I think have seen before how we have 2004 as a representative year for dry conditions, 2007 is sort of a representative year for normal conditions, and 2005 is what we considered at the time to be a wet year. One of the things I want to point about 2014, which started over here in January, and it's the thicker gray line comes over here. Right over here is last December when we had our storm on December 11th, ultimately. Apparently, I don't know if this cursor is showing up, but on the right-hand side of the plot, you can see how we gained a lot in storage during that storm. And I wanted to point that out relative to 2013, which is over here, to the left of January was 2013. We came in to our storage term that's shown here with very low storage, but because of the storm we got in December, we came into the year pretty high, over 800 million gallons, and that difference can have a great effect on how our storage curve plays out for the year. So I wanted to point that out. There was also in two of Jennifer's slides that she showed an associated bump up in storage at around the December 11th timeframe also. So what happens in the potable side of the picture does mimic itself to some degree in the recycled water side of the picture as well. In February, we had a pretty significant storm, although not as significant as the December 11th storm, and that pushed our storage levels up a little bit as well. Flows tapered off as a result of that, and we're leveling out right now in the neighborhood of around 870 million gallons. There are a number of things that can happen between now and when the storage curve would peak out sometime around the middle of May. There could be frost protection flows, which are used for vineyard frost protection purposes. We could have some rain, which would affect storage. When irrigation starts up is also something that can affect storage levels. But just to contrast those things with the geysers flows, I had Mike Sherman, the person responsible for the geysers system and also reclamation, run a model scenario to show what the effects of geysers contract flows would be on storage. Now, just as a reminder, we have an annual contractual commitment of flow to Calpine through the geysers pipeline. That does not equate to a single flow rate all year long. There is a flow trend that we follow every year, and there's essentially a monthly flow rate that we use as a guideline for meeting that contractual target. So we break it down operationally into month chunks at certain flow rates. We're coming off of the highest flow time of the year. We typically have a maximum flow of around 16.9 million gallons a day. That flow is tapering down now and will taper down through the summer essentially, and then it'll pick back up later in the year. But the influence of that reduction in geysers flow will produce in and of itself an increase in storage of on the order of 300 to 400 million gallons between now, beginning of March, and roughly the middle of May. And so, all other things being equal, if you assume constant plant flows, which isn't necessarily a good assumption, I'm hoping it's not a good assumption, because if we get some rain, those plant flows will come up. But if we did not get any rain and had no frost protection, so these are some pretty significant caveats. I think there may actually be some frost protection operations going on lately. It's been pretty cold at night. But in the absence of those things, and all things being equal, the reduction in geysers flow alone would have this storage curve getting up into the 1.2, 1.25 billion gallon range. Now, I don't want anyone to hang their hat on that, because that is based on some caveats, and time will tell, but I wanted to point out that just geysers flow trends alone can influence this storage curve, and I don't know if that's intuitive just looking at the curve, because there are a number of other things that are going on in the background that the curve doesn't reveal. This time of the year, in the absence of rain, one of the biggest ones is the reduction in geysers flow. So that's, I think, a new point that I haven't made before that I thought would be worth bringing up, that geysers flow reductions do influence this curve. Admittedly, not as much as significant storms can, but I wanted to point out that relative to 2014, we are in a different section of the chart, as you can see, and we'll see how things play out, and hopefully by the next meeting or the meeting thereafter, I'll have some more facts to discuss about the recycled water storage curves. That's really all I had to go over today. I realize for Board Member Tibbetts, there may be a bunch of things about this chart that don't add up, and I'd be happy to take some time offline to go over it in more detail. But in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and assume we'll do that sometime soon, and maybe reiterate this conversation in the context of more information at a later time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Having said all that, though, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Deputy
Okay.
Director.
Thanks.
Public comments? Seeing no one rise. Referrals, we have none. Written communication and possible board member discussion? None. Subcommittee reports. Board Member Dowd?
I'll report on the Budget Review Subcommittee that I chair, along with Vice Chair Megan Cowan and Board Member Bill Arnone. We've had 3 meetings in the last couple of weeks in preparation of looking at the final utility department budgets and any rate implications that may have. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday. I want to first compliment the way Director Guin puts that whole budget review process together. At our meeting that we had Tuesday of this week, there were somewhere about 17, 18 staff members from various disciplines within the utility department and finance department there who have been contributing input into the process, and it's the kind of thing that I've grown to expect in this department, but you still have to say, wow, that's really a commitment, and that's why the work product that we're seeing is so good. I also want to say both to Board Member Arnone and Vice Chair Cowan how much I appreciate them spending as much time as they are on this process, and I would, if the chair would allow, ask either the Vice Chair or Board Member Arnone to make any comments they might want to make.
Thank you,
Vice Chair
Board.
Cowan.
Thank you, Board Member Dowd. I really appreciate what you said. The budget meetings, I don't have any specific comments on what we've been talking through. This is the second time I've been through this process, so fortunately I'm a little familiar with what's going on, but there's a few things that I've forgotten, and anytime we need information or recap, staff is always really helpful in getting that to us quickly. And I really look forward to the next meeting where we're going to look at rates and the rate structure more in depth. And I think that's something that I haven't really thought about myself too much, and I look forward to looking into that in more detail and seeing if it can be improved.
Board Member Arnone?
I would just echo the compliments to David and the staff for the amount of resources put into these budget committee meetings. It is very helpful, and not only that, it's very responsive. Comments made in our first meeting were reflected in changes made in our second meeting. So, I mean, it seems to me that there's actually productive dialogue going on, and that we are trying to develop a better product at the end. And it's thanks to your staff that that's happening. So, keep it up. Thank you.
Board Member Holt?
Yes, the Contract Review Committee meeting will be meeting next Tuesday.
Great, thank you for the reports, and thank you in particular to the Budget Subcommittee for all the hours of meetings that you've been putting in, and all the, I'm sure, off hours of reading that you've had to do to stay up to speed, and the staff for keeping everybody on task. So we really appreciate it.
We got blue binders this year, so it's easy to distinguish them from the other white binders.
You all should have received an email yesterday from Secretary Perez with regards to subcommittee assignments. For the public record, I'll go ahead and just announce that the Budget Review Subcommittee, again, as noted, is chaired by Board Member Dowd, and along with Board Member Arnone and Vice Chair Cowan. The Contract Review Subcommittee is chaired by myself and members Board Member Holt and Board Member Tibbetts. The Council BPU Liaison Committee is consisted of myself, Vice Chair Cowan, and Board Member Tibbetts. The Water Conservation Committee is chaired by Board Member Holt and includes Board Member Stephenson. The Expanded Water Supply Group is comprised of myself and Vice Chair Cowan. And then the ad hoc committees, Board Member Dowd with the Healdsburg Ad Hoc, myself with the Nutrient Offset Program, and Vice Chair Cowan with the WRDA Ad Hoc Committee. So I want to thank all of you for your willingness to serve, and those of you that made a few adjustments, thanks for accommodating those. And I think that takes care of all the subcommittee reports. Board member reports? Board Member Tibbetts?
Thank you. This last weekend, I had the opportunity to attend two events that were related to the Board of Public Utilities, and more specifically, the Utilities Department. On Friday, the Sonoma County Economic Development Board held the Beer, Cider, and Spirits Conference, of which Director Ewan and his team came, and I just wanted to congratulate you and really say you did a great job. A lot of the craft brewers were there in attendance, and as we know, it's an emerging industry in Sonoma County. And the feedback that I had from one-on-one conversations is that working with the Utilities Department is actually more painless than they anticipate. So whatever you're doing doing really well there for the craft spirits industry. I just wanted to put that on public comment. But also on Saturday, the Wine Country Young Democrats went out and spent time cleaning the creeks with Alistair Bleifus in the Utilities Department. And wow, what another great program. I mean, we picked up between 60 and 100 pounds of trash from the Brush Creek and Santa Rosa Creek area. So again, I thought it was an excellent way to utilize your resources, bringing in a lot of volunteers, doing education in the process to the public, and cleaning up the creeks. And that's it.
Thank you. Any other board member reports? Board Member Dowd.
Chairman Galvin, as you are aware, you appointed me to a part of the automated meter infrastructure committee, and we have been reading the proposals that were responses to the RFP, and we've received 5 complete proposals for the work, and we're going through the review of those, and we'll be meeting again. The committee will start to meet now to discuss and take actions as to who we might want to interview, and it's a very complex system because some equipment is more compatible with our cities than others, and I think it will probably roll out that there will be additional proposals needed to be presented just so that we can get all our ducks in order and then make a final recommendation to the board. I would want the board to fully understand how much work the lead staff member on this project, Ms. Kimberly Zanino, I think her middle initials ought to be AMI at this point. She's done a wonderful job putting this together, and evidence of that is the 5 complete proposals that we got from firms all over the country. So at any rate, please extend that compliment to her if you would, Director Goodwin.
And I want to thank you, Board Member Dowd, for agreeing to serve on that. I know you've got a lot on your plate, but I think you were the right guy for the task, so thank you. Director's report?
All right, so I have to talk about budget because we are in full budget swing at this point. We've got, as you just heard, our budget subcommittee is putting in enormous hours. I want to thank you as well for the time you're putting into it, the questions you're asking, and all the reading you're doing between meetings. I have to say that overseeing a general fund department and an enterprise fund department, the value that the board brings to our process is night and day. And I want to thank you guys for the work you're putting into it, because it makes our product better that we bring to the council and eventually to our public that much better in the end run. So thank you for that. I also want to acknowledge Linda Reed. Linda Reed really is the one taking the lead on this budget effort, her and her team, and then all the deputy directors and their staff really scrubbing the budgets with rate implications in mind, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And we want to make sure we have an operation that can maintain, but we also have to keep that in the back of our heads, and our staff have done an excellent job doing that. So thank you. We had an interest, real quickly, I appreciate the comments on the beer cider and spirits conference. One of the people that sat on the panel with me was an engineer from a private consulting firm, and when I called and asked him to be on the panel, he said, I picked up the phone, and when you asked me to be on this panel, he said, it solidified I made the right career decisions in life, that I get to talk about engineering at a beer conference. So it was actually a really good event. We had a good time. I appreciate you being there. It was great to see you there listening to the conversation. Our economic development division actually took the lead in setting this up and getting us there. We did make a presence. We had people from our permitting, planning, water conservation, from utilities and others, and it was great to be able to talk to different people in different formats, in a more casual format, to basically say, we're here to answer questions, we're open for business, come work with us, we want to be your partner. So it was a great event. So thank you for putting that on. It's wonderful. And just real quickly, the other panelist from the city that was up there with me was Gabe Osborne. He's our development review coordinator, and he did an excellent job, and I just want to give him credit for taking the time. And he filled in for somebody that backed out at the last minute due to jury duty, so he jumped in with 2 days' notice, and he did an excellent job. So thank you, Gabe. We had an interesting opportunity actually yesterday. So as we hosted a water and energy roundtable for 18 students and faculty from the National Defense University Eisenhower School in Washington, D.C. So the city manager got a request to have this meeting and passed it off to me, and Tasha Wright, who was here for the energy sustainability team, set this up. We expected 4 people, and about 23 people showed up. All energy experts in the military from around the world in different bases, and they wanted to hear about our efforts. And so we brought in, I was there for Santa Rosa Water talking about our energy efforts. We brought in Cordell Stewart from the Water Agency to talk about theirs. We brought in Calpine, and we also brought in Sonoma Clean Power. And so they got a good representation of what we're doing here in the county. And the takeaway that they told us was that they were impressed and blown away by the collaboration and how we work together to solve these problems. And so they are traveling all around the state. They're traveling around the country, and they're heading to Japan after this to go do some site visits, and then back to Washington, D.C. So it was a great experience, and they did a tour of our treatment plant. I think they had a good time checking out the tours, and Colin helped organize this as well, so thank you for pulling that together. I guess we talked about the 5K run, so if you're there, you can join us. It's March 15th at 3 p.m. Be happy to run alongside with you. You also start to see, we've talked about this a little bit, with the name of our department. So you'll start to see rolling out Santa Rosa Water. We're starting to use that term more. You'll see that on some of the outreach materials. You'll start to see that out in the community at our events. And Elise is going to be coming to you with a rollout and Do you have I'm going to put her on the spot real quickly, just to tell you where this is going, because this is exciting for us. It's a good way to change the perception of what people think about us and what our role is, and also interact with our community. So if you could say a few words about it.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon. So I've had the pleasure of speaking with most of you about our transition from utilities to Santa Rosa Water. And Board Member Tibbetts, I haven't had that opportunity yet, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So we take a very integrated approach to water and water management. And there's been some confusion in the past as far as utilities and the services that we provide. We're all things water here. We don't provide power, we don't provide other services, and to have a clear and concise message going forward in the future, we have decided to become Santa Rosa Water. So I'm working on a rollout plan right now. It'll start with our staff, board members, making presentations, letting everybody know that we're making this change, and then we're gonna also use our existing outreach tools to let our customers know. We're relaunching our monthly e-newsletter. We'll have bill inserts. When we're going out at events as well, we'll have our new Santa Rosa Water messaging. So it's going to be a process to let people know that we're becoming Santa Rosa Water, but it's very exciting for us, and we're really trying to have fun, engaging messaging to start conversations with people about their water. The Drip Detective campaign, I think, is a really good example of that. Having our running toilet, partnering with the St. Patrick's Day 5K. We want to do more of that. It's an essential part of our community, the services that we provide. We've got this amazing staff that has these amazing programs, and we want people to know about them, and we want people to participate in them. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for the director? Hearing none, our next item, Assistant City Attorney Rawlings.
Thank you, Chairman Galvin. Members of the board, you have one item on your closed session agenda today, which is conference with real property negotiators. The properties involved are 4099 Walker Avenue, Santa Rosa, APN 134-231-021, and Meadow Lane, no street address, Santa Rosa, APN 134-231-020. The negotiators on behalf of the agency, and that language comes from the Brown Act, but it would be the city negotiators, Jill Scott and Mike Prince. Negotiating parties, Bobby Joe Allen, and under negotiation are price and terms.
Thank you. With that, we'll adjourn to the mayor's conference room and report out thereafter.
Oncoming traffic. Check for oncoming bicycles and pedestrians attempting to cross the intersection. Always yield to the pedestrians, as they have the right of way. If you don't see a gap in traffic, don't take a chance. Just wait until the next green arrow appears.
The City of Santa Rosa